Yeah, we're gonna have you do the introduction.
Perfect.
Um, how do you want to
I'm
do
gonna,
it?
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna improv this video. I'm gonna improv this bad boy. Trust me.
Okay,
So I can just start whenever.
whenever you want.
Hello, CyrusofChaos fans. We're gonna have a little bit of a change of pace today and get to know the man behind the brand. Introducing Andrew Fishel. Hello, Andrew.
What's up, guys?
So let's talk about Andrew, the person, before we go into Andrew, the fencer, Andrew, the Cyrus of Chaos. So who are you and where are you from?
So I'm from Long Island. I grew up in Huntington. We moved.
Go Long Island.
Yeah, Long Island boy.
Mm.
I grew up in Huntington, and I live now about 15 minutes from the hospital that I was born in. So, at various.
You're definitely home.
Yeah,
home
yeah,
life.
right.
It's good. So, did you have any hobbies outside of fencing, maybe before fencing?
Oh yeah. So
Or now?
when I was little, I played a lot of different sports. My family is a big tennis family. My grandpa actually played in the U.S. Open, and my
Right, I forgot. You're always at the U.S. Open whenever it's here.
yeah,
Really good seats too, like front row seats.
my family loves tennis, so my dad knows all the tricks. He was selling. He used to sell tickets there when he was a little kid and like hand out peanuts and stuff. So it's like it goes way
Did you
back.
want to be a professional tennis player?
No, I didn't. Everyone else in the family was so into tennis that it really turned me off. It was like when you're little and everyone wants you to do something, you just don't want to do that. So
Right. So I'm also gonna have some side questions, just get some official fun facts as well as official information. For example, what's your favorite food?
oh damn, that's tricky.
That is tricky.
I think if you have to narrow it down to one thing, it's probably fried shrimp shumai. Japanese.
Anything fried. Anything fried.
I love fried food.
Take it. Okay, noted. So, if any, can you tell us a little bit about your experience in video editing, commentating, what your experience was to this prior to fencing?
Sure. So if you want to go all the way back, I used to. My first like true competitive love was Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is a game that was made in the mid 2000s,
I
and
remember it was so fun.
yeah, it's awesome.
When
And
it first came out.
I used to lose badly to this kid I really didn't like in high school, and someone suggested I check out footage of professional melee tournaments on this new website called YouTube. And so yeah, right. So I went and I watched some good players and I tried to copy and understand what they did, and I started beating this kid really easily within like a week. And then within like a year, I was winning regional melee tournaments. And so when I started to fence, I was like, why don't I do the same thing
Right,
with
because this
this?
wasn't really available in the sense that they had footage that you can look at, but I also think that the analysis was not necessarily a form of training that was utilized really,
Yeah.
like video analysis.
There wasn't even footage available. So
Yeah.
the first time I ever did my own video editing, I was watching Nicolas Lopez's counterattacks at the Olympics.
It was so good.
He was so good, and he had this very interesting style where he would use his counterattacks to set up other counterattacks. Most people use distance or parries to set them up, but he would counterattack and then use that to get more counterattacks. And I just thought that was so crazy. So
Yeah.
so I learned how to use video editing on Windows Movie Maker, and I just put all of his clips from the Olympics back to back, and I started watching them, and I started noticing all these patterns. And my first video, which was a very amateurish attempt at an analysis, I just put them all back to back and just like wrote down everything I was seeing and thinking.
So in general, you had so you taught yourself everything
Yeah, everything.
in terms of. So do you find that you're using the same like apps, same like the way that you edit? It's very similar to how you started, or it's become much more complex
It's
over the years.
it's totally different. So Windows Movie Maker is very rudimentary. It's easy to learn, but it doesn't have a lot of deep functionality. And as you learn how to do the stuff better, you want to have more options. So I use Adobe Premiere Pro when I edit on my computer. It's very powerful. It can do a lot of stuff, but the trade-off of that is it's quite difficult to learn and get into. And then when I do editing for Instagram on my phone or anything like that, I use InShot, which actually Race and Bowden recommended to me, and I've been extremely happy with the quality of the stuff that's come out of there. So
we've kind of painted a picture of, and where are you looking at? Are you back on Long Island now?
Yes, when the pandemic happened, I realized I started self-quarantining about a week before it became a really big deal, because I have a lot of friends in Europe, like many of us fencers do, and I realized that it was extremely bad over there and probably was going to get bad over here, and I didn't want to get sick. So I started quarantining in my 375 square foot apartment, and my parents and I were checking in daily, and they said, like, if you're just going to be stuck there, why don't you just come home?
Come home. Oh my God, you got some space out. So it's nice they're able to kind of be home at least during this and with the family. I know some people are not as fortunate to like have that right now.
Yeah, I got laundry inside. I can exercise. I got a yard. I have people to talk to.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's frustrating. We all want it to be over soon or as soon as possible. But I know that a lot of, especially all over the internet, like fencers, athletes are all posting how they're staying in shape, how they're, psychologically staying stable during this time. So it's really nice to see that everyone's kind of banding together, especially the athletes. So on that note, let's talk about Andrew Fischel, the fencer, now that we've talked about him as the person. So how did you start fencing?
So I mentioned before that when I was little, I played a lot of tennis, and I wasn't in love with it because it was something that I was kind of being pushed into doing by my whole family. And so when I didn't want to do that, my dad was like, well, you have to play some sport. So I tried soccer, basketball, lacrosse, hockey, football, but I just didn't really enjoy those things.
You don't like any of them?
I mean, I don't love team sports. The only team sport I've ever enjoyed...
None of the fencers do.
Yeah, the only team sport I ever really enjoyed was volleyball, because it's the only sport where you really have to, like, coordinate as a team. The other ones, I found, like, just one kid who was really good at soccer could just, like, hog the ball the whole time, and it didn't really feel like a team sport to me.
Right.
So when I got the choice to pick my own sport, I picked something that was completely random, like, that no one knew anything about on purpose.
You found this on your own?
Yeah, I did. It sounded fun, and I was like, well, there's a huge plus. No one in my family knows anything about it.
Right. When did it start? Where did you go? Where was this? Was this?
This was before. It was the summer before my junior year of high school. I went to a club called FCLI, which.
Oh, so this was very late. This was.
Yeah, when I was...
I mean, I'd say the average American fencer now, or at least the ones that are at a higher level, start when they're 8.
Yeah, I think I was either 16 or 17. I don't exactly remember which, but it was the summer before my junior year of high school, and I actually started... I started with an 8-week foil class taught by Bruce Gilman.
Well,
Bruce Gilman, the eventual Vassar coach, which is where I went to school, and I knew right off the bat that I wanted to do saber, and I hated foil, and we were doing it because my dad didn't have time to drive me on the days that the saber class was, so I was like, after 4 weeks, I was like, if I keep doing this, I'm not going to continue. So,
why did you want to do saber so bad?
I could tell from looking at it that it was more my personality, like very quick, very aggressive, and the foil fencing was not what I had envisioned. So. And
it is kind of funny that you say that, because it's definitely true that, and maybe it's just because we've seen them so long. Like when you look at the big names, and they're even the ones that you don't know, you can almost guess their personality from the weapon that they fence, or vice versa. You're like, oh, this makes sense that they fence this weapon because they're like this.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like. You're not an epee fencer. I can't necessarily word for you what a stereotypical epee fencer is, but you're not that.
You can just tell it's not me.
My follow-up question was, do you have any regrets about your weapon of choice?
Honestly, I think knowing myself as well as I do now, foil would have been a better pick for me.
Well, I personally have dueled with you on the strip a couple of times, and I definitely, you had started even later than late in terms of foil. I mean, within the past couple of years, but have you found it to be very similar to saber or quite different? Aside from the obvious.
I mean, it's quite different. Things that I know about myself, I know that I'm very good in improvising situations, and foil has the most improvisational situations of the 3 weapons, and I think saber has the least. So the thing that I'm the strongest at is least represented in my weapon. I also think that I don't like the fact that epee has such a short timing. I do better on on something when I have like a little more time. And of the three, foil has the widest timing as well.
I mean, you would have loved foil pre 2004. I mean, you
When
had
all the
5
time
seconds in between touches.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could touch someone, and then right after that, not like it was nothing before they cut that down.
Yeah.
So, all right, so saber kind of bleeding into foil a little bit, and at the end of the day, it's. I hope you don't have regrets about what you chose in training and stuff like that.
I don't have regrets.
But it's nice that even now you're able to still pursue and pick up other weapons. I've for fun fenced saber and epee, but I've never considered taking lessons or even competing. Have you competed in competitions for other weapons?
I did one epee competition in college. I had my roommate come stay with me for Christmas break, and he was planning on doing the Hangover Open at the New York Athletic Club. And he asked if I wanted to do it too, and I was like, yeah, why not? So I brought some epee stuff home with me. I didn't realize it was going to be like a 35-person round robin. So I fenced way more epee than I was expecting to or wanted to fence, and I think that was enough for me for one lifetime. I think I actually finished like 9th in that tournament, so it wasn't bad. But
so as a competitor, and be very honest, have you ever gotten black-carded?
Oh no, that's the one thing.
Or a really bad red card, something that you totally deserve.
One time I almost got black-carded. I was fencing the IFA championships against Thomas Abend from Princeton, and I don't remember who the ref was, but in my opinion, he was doing a terrible job. And I was fighting so hard, and despite the fact that I thought I was not being treated fairly, it ended up being 14-14, and I lost on just like the jankiest remise. And I took my mask off and just spiked it, and it went flying into the air, and one of my friends caught it. And the referee walked over holding both a red and a black card, and he said to me, which one do you want? And I said, I was so mad at him, I said, I want the black card, but you should give me the red card. So
it was like, all right, fair.
Yeah, so he
good. Listen, I consider that lucky. I consider that very lucky. Yeah. I mean, I've never black carded either, but I've heard funny stories. Especially, it's funny. I feel like I honestly think that you even get a little more leeway on the higher your level against, because they get it as it becomes more and more your livelihood. That better chance that it's gonna really draw something out of you.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of people that know, at least the young people that follow you now, don't realize that you were highly competitive to the point that you were on the U.S. international travel squad. You were doing the World Cups, Grand Prix. Can you give us a little glimpse into your international traveling experience, maybe when you had just started to the end of your very competitive fencing career?
So the first tournament I went to overseas was in Istanbul, which is a World Cup that they don't have anymore. So when I started fencing, I think there were 15 World Cups in a season, and not everyone went to all of them, but now there's only 8 and everyone goes to all of them. So I went to a World Cup in Turkey that was moderately strong, and I won all except for one bout in my pool and made it straight up, and then I lost a close bout to the junior world champion from a year or two earlier, and that was a really exciting way to start my international career.
In your opinion, and was it very different from anything that you had done before? Or did it feel going through you're going through the motions?
No, it was different. I think the coolest thing actually was waiting in the equipment check line, because a lot of the fencers that I had already been making videos at this point, and a lot of fencers that I knew and was idolizing were in line with me. And actually, the person that I lost to was Balazs Lantai, and I made a video about his attack. So when we were fencing each other, he just couldn't attack me, and
That's great. I was gonna say, have you ever fenced with anyone, or I mean, I know now very commonly you're on Instagram and you're talking with the great saber fencers, even foil fencers, Barroso and Montano, and they're all being maybe asking for footage or commenting on your post. But did you have that relationship at that point where a fencer was like, "Oh, I've seen your video on me"?
At that point, no. I actually have a funny story about this. My second video ever was a video about Montano's attack, and I called it Montano's trample attack, which was just like, I don't know, it just reminded me of like the way that a bull like stampedes at something.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear this until a long time later from one of my teammates, but he was telling me that a lot of the top guys were annoyed with these videos because Daryl Homer apparently had this like funny instance where this kid at MFC, or I guess FC at the time, asked him like, it's like, Daryl Homer, how's my trample attack? And he's like, I don't know what the hell a trample attack is. And this kid is like, you don't know what a trample attack is? Then why am I getting advice from you? So, like, initially...
No, it's true. And, like, this is what we're going to get into is that also, like, there's also kind of a responsibility that comes with what you're doing. And, you know what I mean? And the brand in which you've grown. So before we get into more of, like, the Cyrus aspect of you, I want to just briefly talk about your collegiate fencing career, kind of on the other end of the where were you at school? And how would you kind of summarize your collegiate fencing career as opposed to the World Cup circuit?
Yes. So when I went to college, I had only been fencing for about 2 years. And so I wasn't really being recruited. Like a couple coaches were looking at me, but I don't think anyone was too serious except for Bruce Gilman, because he taught me the first time I ever picked up a fencing weapon. And when I was applying to schools a year later, I had a B rating in USFA, and he was just really impressed by what I'd done in that time. So while other people saw me as just someone who was mediocre at best,
right,
Bruce saw the progress that I had made in 1 year instead of the actual level that I was at,
right,
and was really pushing hard for me to go there. So when I went to school, I was a B-rated fencer. I had no points at all. And when I graduated, I had gone to NCAAs 4 times. I was rated 5th in the country, and I was within like a couple points of making a U.S. national team. Yeah. So,
and much respect to Bruce as well. I know that he retired recently, right?
No, he's still there.
Oh, he didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking of Shipman retired recently,
yes,
right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Right, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. So now that we've kind of contrasted both of those, before we get into the other side of you, who is, in your opinion, not necessarily on paper the hardest, but for you, the toughest fencer you fenced in your international career?
Kim Jong-won.
Yeah?
For sure.
Without a doubt?
Without a doubt. Someone like Gu is very difficult, and I have my own reasons for being like a little gun shy when I fence him, but you can see clearly like the strengths that he has. His footwork is amazing, his length is unbelievable, but Kim looks kind of awkward, and it doesn't feel like he's hitting you on things that make sense. So like he'd like, I don't know, his blade would be down and you'd be hitting him to 3, and he'd like take a preem parry and hit you on the head. You're like, that didn't make any sense. And then you'd be defending yourself from a safe distance, and suddenly his light would be on, and you're just like, I don't really understand what's happening. And that's the only person I've ever fenced where I felt like that. Although I did only fence him once, but I wish I had more chances to kind of like decipher.
You know exactly who I feel that way about.
Garrick
Meinhardt. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That man, there will never be a fencer like him, as you know. But that kind of description is the same of like you're getting hit and you're like, I don't know. And at the same time, there's only so much video footage you can watch. There's no real patterns to memorize. There's no real anything, you know? So yeah. It's also nice that fencers like that are out there to really like kind of push the boundaries. And like you said, to continue watching even when they retire.
Yeah, exactly.
Very near future, as sad as it is. And there was actually a whole another aspect that I'm just thinking of now. You've been a coach as well. You've been a coach, as in regardless of your fencing and as well as your videography, do you like that whole aspect of coaching, of giving fencers instruction?
I love it. I think that it's kind of tragic that so many people kind of like move on from the sport and all the knowledge they've accumulated just goes away with them. And I mean, obviously I'm giving back through the fencing as well. I mean, my channel as well, but
right.
It's very rewarding. Like, this is the first year I like committed myself to coaching, and I coached at Wellesley, and it's just really rewarding seeing someone do something wrong, think about how to fix it, work with them on actually fixing it, and then see them start winning because of those changes that you've made.
And there was actually quite a little bit of new success in the Wellesley team as well during your teaching there. People were doing better, people were improving, and that's really just nice to see. Is this something that you can see yourself doing
for sure
down the line?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was working, when I retired, I wasn't sure if I wanted to get into reffing because I just saw the abuse that goes along with it. And there's not a whole lot of like pay or upside to doing it. But I found that I really hated the 9-to-5 life. And the only things that were like making me happy while I was doing that was my, like, going to the NACS was awesome, and I could still see my friends, and like I personally can gather more footage for my channel, so there's more upsides to it than just the actual like tangibles that you get from reffing. So I really like that, and just pushing it a little farther, I wanted to see if I could make money in this sport, right. And coaching is the way to do that right now. So
right now, yeah. All right, let's get down to business. So I remember when I was a little kid, let's say between 8 and 10 years old, at my first fencing club, we had this one desktop computer, and my coach and I loved to watch videos of footage. So the first fencing footage I ever saw was on a channel that I called CyrusofChaos. This is how my 9-year-old self pronounced that. Yeah. And we were watching the footage from the Beijing Olympics in 2008, which I think even still to this day is some of your most watched footage, just because it's hard to find. I think you're one of the only pages that actually has that content.
Yeah.
So my question is, first of all, were you there? Did you go to Beijing?
No.
Because that footage that you have I can't find it anywhere else.
Yes, and there's a reason for that. So a year, so I was already doing some CyrusofChaos stuff at the time, and a few days after the Beijing Olympics happened, my coach at the time, Mihail Etropolsky, had recorded the stream and started uploading videos to my channel. And while he was doing that, I was getting messages from YouTube saying like, what you're doing is illegal and you need to stop doing this. And I was like, I don't know I don't know what that means, because I wasn't doing anything. So I looked at my channel, but nothing was happening. And then I got another one, and then another one. And then it's like, you have a copyright strike. If you get 3 of these, we'll delete your account. And I was like, I called him and was like, Mike, stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
But then I reached out to NBC about a year later and messaged them and said, like, this footage is available on your website, but no one can actually find it or do anything with it. Can I host it, and I'll provide a link to your website? And within like 5 minutes, the guy sent back like, that sounds great, no problem.
Great.
Wow. So that worked well. But when I tried that again in 2012, the ownership of those videos and the 2012 videos had changed, and the new people who were in charge, which I think is now MSNBC, told me that they don't want an entire library of competition available for public viewing, and that was the end of it.
Right.
So
that's what I was gonna say. I mean, like they themselves have posted stuff on their YouTube channels and things like that, mostly just highlight clips, but it's still hard to find, from the round of 32 to the final.
That's by design. They don't want it for some reason, and I don't understand why. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, but I remember we would sit down and I watched Ben Kleibrink win the Olympics. He was like lefty, just going down the strip and touch people because he was invincible that day, all in your channel. I remember that was big for me in terms of being a small lefty fencer that was able to watch this guy win the Olympics. And from then I was watching, you posted videos. You love to post videos of Baldini, of Sheng Lei, the Chinese fencer, who just amazing. So where does the name come from? What is CyrusofChaos?
So the first time I heard the name Cyrus was in my history class, and I thought the name was so cool. And when I got to pick my own name when I was playing Melee, that's the name that I picked. Because when you play video games, you choose your own like name for competition. Mm-hmm. And so the people that I played with, kind of like my Melee fencing club, was the Chaos Crew. So I was CyrusofChaos.
Wow. Did you have a specific character that you only played in Smash?
I mean, back in the day when I was like winning tournaments and doing really well, I played Samus and Zelda, but I mean that's like a real grassroots thing. Today you can't do well with those characters, but I mean just like over time, I love the game so much. I can play competently with pretty much anybody. So, like, if I went to a tournament now, I'd probably play either Marth or Jigglypuff. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but, like...
Well, so in general, when did you decide... I know that maybe you had already had a YouTube channel. Maybe it even wasn't for fencing footage. I'm not sure. But at what point were you like, okay, I'm going to do this? Like, I'm going to post videos of fencing on YouTube.
So that actually happened really early. So the first time I ever went to a Div 1 event, I got my ass kicked. And then I watched some great fencers that day. Harry Mahaffey, Baron Neidham, Keith Smart, Daryl Homer, Jason Rogers. And I remember thinking there were so many things that they were doing that were just amazing and that I wanted to try. And the next day, I couldn't remember anything. Nothing. And so I realized if I was going to keep doing this, it was pointless to watch at all if I wasn't going to film. And so my dad gave me the camera. And then after I started recording a little bit, he was like, you know, you're watching a lot. There's not a lot of footage available. I'm sure other people would be interested in seeing this too. So the first video I ever posted, which was a final at an MFC local tournament between Jason Rogers and Keith Smart, I think.
That's ideal footage. I mean, those guys are giants, you know?
It got I think 150 views on the first day with no relevant subscribers. Yeah. So I was like, I think I might be onto something.
So once that even started, I mean, because even early on, let's just say just on YouTube, before you even made your Instagram brand, you were having tens of thousands of likes, of just views. So at what point were you like, okay, I can make a brand out of this? I can have I have a CyrusofChaos t-shirt in my closet. Like, when were you like, okay, like this is something I want to grow this? Or was it more just kind of natural progression?
Yeah, it was more of a natural progression. I still haven't figured out a reliable way to make money or a living doing this, and if someone does have an idea for that, they should definitely let me know. But over time, it just kind of changed a little bit. Initially, I was selling those t-shirts, but now that specific t-shirt that you have, I only give to my friends and as a bribe to people to film for me.
So this is going to my next question. So you and your page are also notorious for getting other fencers or non-fencers to record footage for you. I've seen people, World Cup videos pop up for places that you've never even been to.
Yeah.
So my question for you is that how do you get these people to record for you? Maybe it's some kind of incentive or what?
Yeah, so I can't be everywhere at once. And the whole goal of this project that I'm doing is that it's bigger than any one person, and that we just want fencing that happens to be available everywhere. And because I can't be everywhere at once, at a NAC, I'm reffing, and there's 5 interesting bouts going on at once. Mm-hmm. So I'll talk to people who I've met through Instagram interactions usually, and ask them to film things for me. And it's gotten to the point where I have such a solid base of people that I'm friendly with in a bunch of different countries that I don't even ask anymore. A lot of the time people will just send me hey, I recorded the finals of this Junior World Cup. Do you want them? The answer is always yes.
Would you trust it? Let's say at a national competition, would you, under the right circumstances, if anyone went up to you and said, hey, there's a bout going on over there, can I record it for you? Is that something that you would never really be opposed to?
Yes, I would never really be opposed to that. You can also film with your own camera. Back when I was first starting, that wasn't really an option, but phones now have cameras that are sometimes as advanced as camcorders. Mm-hmm. So it's better if you think CyrusofChaos would love this bout, I wonder where he is. Just take out your camera and start recording it, and we can talk about that later. Because it's always better to just record something and you can delete it later. But if you don't,
it might not necessarily make it on your
page, if you don't record something, it's gone forever.
Yeah.
So
it's nice to know that at least what's great about your page is that it also makes it feel like a partnership.
Yeah, totally.
You are the host, so to speak, but it's also you're being very open that it's for me.
Yeah.
This is really for me. For my entertainment and for me to learn.
Exactly. And I'll always give credit in the YouTube video section. Thank you to whoever for filming this bout. So, yeah. So the first time it ever happened was at a Div 1 foil competition where I I was supposed to be reffing like a round of 16 for Sabre, and the round of 8 for men's foil was going on, and I knew I was going to be called any minute, and I was trying to find like a friend of mine who I could like throw my camera at. And Filippo Vanni, who I'd refereed a couple times but had never spoken.
Go Bridge.
Yes, Go Bridge. But I'd never spoken to and was not friends with at the time, said to me, "Are you Cyrus of Chaos?" And I said yes, and he said, "I would be honored to film this bout for you." I was like, okay. So that was the first time it ever happened. So I gave him my camera, showed him how to use it, gave him my number so he could contact me afterwards, and then like he filmed that tournament for me, and he's been doing it ever since, and it's amazing. But
yeah, and I actually had Filippo film one of my bouts, and one thing that I appreciate that you do is that when you give people the blessing to record for your page, you kind of you don't give them any restrictions, you don't give them any guidelines, so it's kind of nice to see like the rawness of a bout, and also the person who's recording it, who's also a spectator, to actually commentate on their own. Like, for example, like in the video that I was fencing at one of the national competitions, Filippo like was recording and he saw me get attached. You just hear, "Oh, sick!" And like it's nice to have that. You know what I mean? It's like it's not biased or anything like that. It's just you get to feel like your videos also contain a lot of emotion, whether it's your commentating or the people that you end up getting to videotape for you.
Well, the thing about that is like you're doing me a favor. I'm not paying the person. They're just doing it because they love fencing, and like they understand that this is something that other people are going to want to see too, and they've benefited from the channel, so they're always very happy to help me out. And so I'm not going to be like, hold this, stand exactly here and don't make a single sound the whole time. Like, because that's not fun. And if they're not enjoying doing it, they're not going to do it again.
Right.
So that was go ahead.
So my question for you is, and this is also just for other people listening that may not know this, are you accessible to people who want footage, who want your input on their fencing? I know personally that I've reached out to you and have been like, hey, like, do you happen to have footage of this? Or did you catch, or maybe next time if you see me at a competition, can you just jump in and do this for me? Like, again, a lot of this services, like, I would even pay you for.
Yeah. But
what is your accessibility, let's say via like your Instagram or Facebook, stuff like that, for not necessarily Andrew Official, but for Cyrus of Chaos?
So one of the things I love about Instagram more than any of the other platforms I've ever used is how accessible it is for everybody. And if you reach out to me on Instagram, I will always respond to you as quickly as I can. So, I mean, depending on the quality of the task, like I may ask for some money for it, but if it's something simple, like send me a link, as long as you've put in like an honest effort to try to find it yourself, I'm always happy to help you. And if you want to do like a video analysis with me of your bout, like that's something that we can talk about. I probably will end up charging for that, but.
So speaking of Instagram, 13,000 followers. Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a great milestone. I mean, you started off with 0, and it's been some time, but it's getting really big. Yeah. So now that you're at this kind of like threshold of really growing, where do you see, let's say, your brand in terms of Instagram in the next coming years?
So, I mean, what I've noticed from a lot of people is that they use their Instagram following to in some way make a living from it. And I'm not exactly sure what the best way for me to do that for myself is, but right now I just want to keep it growing so I can keep increasing the number of people that are aware of my name, and at some point maybe I'll find a way to like give like video analysis lessons with people or something that could eventually pay for some things that I need. So
I think that because it's such a new form of training, it's also the people. It's hard to do it. It's almost like its own science of not only the technology of knowing how to reverse videos and slow them down and speed them up, but also just starting. Many people don't believe that the analysis is that important. Yeah. At least not even for other people's fencing, but for your own. I mean, I have coaches that make me sometimes record my practice bouts at the club. So I think that that's also just a very interesting aspect of training, that because you're at the forefront of, you can be a teacher for the teachers.
Yeah.
You know?
When I first started, like I was saying, it worked for me in Melee, just like watching and analyzing other people, and it worked for me in fencing too. I within 6 years of starting, I was fifth in the country, and I had changed coaches a couple of times. There was a period of time when I was just coaching myself. I think that if you are very objective when you're looking at something, and you just know the right questions to ask, then you can get a lot out of that by just being diligent with it. Right. And that's what I did. So
no, I think that's great. But there was something that I remembered in 2015. I was at the Pan American Junior Zonal, and I fenced a fencer named Raymond Chen, who graduated from UPenn recently, and I got manhandled in the semifinal, 15-3, and it was all on tape. But nothing that I had ever had. I saw that Raymond Chen's mother was recording it, so I didn't have the strength to ask for that footage with that 15-3 destruction. But she reached out to my dad within like a week saying, hey, I have a recording of Sam's bout with Raymond Chen. Maybe he'd like to look at it. So I reached out to her myself, and I said, this is really nice of you, because again, it provides some kind of advantage for me to be able to look at this footage and improve for next time.
Yeah.
And I said this to her, and she's like, this will be good for my son. This will be good for my son.
That's a great attitude.
I don't want it to be 15-3. So where I'm going with this is that, like any other field, in terms of making a brand, it's competitive. It's competitive. So I've recently been seeing, after you, some different fencing pages popping up. For example, we talked about Fencing Highlights, which is run by two Russian fencers that's getting very successful. Yeah. Yet I've also found that you help these brands. Or like American Fencing, run by Tomas and Kuk. So you help these brands. You support them. You give them shout-outs. You guys bounce ideas off of each other. What is your mindset in terms of growing your own brand while also supporting these other people to kind of grow the overall, footage?
That's a good question. So I will support a brand once I see that they're doing things consistently and doing things in a way that I like. So, for example, like Instagram Fencing Love or whatever that channel is, they steal videos from other people's things, and they don't give credit, and they try to use that to sell t-shirts. I block those pages immediately. But someone like Sergey, who runs the fencing highlight page, seems to really love fencing. He's very enthusiastic about it. He just like, I don't know, people like that who love fencing and just want to show the sport to more people. Like, I'm very happy to help them. And once they've established that they're not just like gonna do it for a week and like be done, like then I'll start helping the way that I've been helping him. So,
and kind of an overarching broad question: how do you feel now about CyrusofChaos? Do you feel when you go to a national competition and you're walking around with your camera, and I've seen little kids go up to you and be like, "You're CyrusofChaos," and you're like, "Yeah." Is this anything that you had ever expected, even in your fencing career, that was the kind of clout you would be getting at this point?
No, it's not. When you fence, it's such a small community. A lot of people know you, and it's hard to like walk from one side of the room to the other without being like, I don't know, without getting into like 5 or 6 conversations.
Right.
But I wasn't expecting that to happen, like to continue happening after I retired, because people lose their notoriety so quickly in fencing. Like I had a kid I mentioned Ivan Lee the other day, and some kid was like, "Who is that?" I was like, "Really?" But which is a shame. But I mean, it's nice that this has continued to like. So this is something that people continue to know about, even though that I'm retired, and they know that it's me doing it. So that's nice.
And what's amazing about your craft is that it transcends both worlds, between fencing and people that don't fence. Like there are plenty of times where I've sat with people that know nothing about fencing with your footage, and have slowed down videos, have explained right of way, have showed my favorite fencers, have shown some of my highlights, and like this is the only realm where that exists. So I think it makes your popularity, even with non-fencers, great.
That's great. Yeah, one of the things that's hard to do, but I try to do it on the Instagram channel, is like I try to present fencing in a way that's exciting to people who have never watched it, while still being something that good fencers want to watch. And it's hard, but I mean, I'm still figuring it out.
And I still think this is one of the reasons that your page has evolved. That it became a just chain of bouts just that, to the point where you are conducting interviews,
Mm-hmm.
you are doing video analyses, you're pointing out sportsmanship videos, like different kinds. So is this something that you'd like to continue branching different branches within the realm of fencing?
Oh, hell yeah. I think that, like, I myself am very compulsive and whimsical when it comes to this stuff. Like, I mean, I think this is a very good example. We were talking last night about doing an analysis today, and I just, like, mentioned this just completely randomly, and now we're doing it.
And now we're doing it, yeah.
So when I have an idea, I've learned to trust those ideas and just go with them, because, like you said, it used to just be about like just showing a raw bout, and sometimes I do a video analysis. But when the FIE started doing when they started covering entire tournaments and uploading them, I thought that it was not going to be necessary to do what I was doing anymore. But then I found the Instagram platform, and I started uploading like highlight touches and trying to reach out and like communicate with more people in the community. And so it's completely changed from that. And now, because of the COVID thing, all these people that I had wanted to work with for a long time but didn't have time for whatever reason are now completely available. And so I learned how to interview with Jonah Shainberg a couple weeks ago.
And it's funny because when you go onto your Instagram page and go through the following and you go see who's following you, you'll see it's verified, because all of the top dogs follow your page.
Yeah.
They want to know it's good, and it's also a mutual respect. You're not a fan page. You're
Right.
not like, oh, look at these sick touches. You're a page that's like, this is what these. It's a mixture of like, this is awesome, but also this is what these people are doing.
Yeah, I think it's very important not to be like a fanboy, and I really like some of the things that certain fencers are doing, but I wouldn't consider myself like a huge fan of anybody, but in like a positive way. And when I get into a conversation with these guys for the first time, the first words out of my mouth are not like, oh my God, I love your fencing so much. It's just they contact me for something and we talk about it, and then we just, I don't know, like have real conversations instead of it being like a very like one-directional thing.
And as someone that's fenced for his entire competitive career for the United States, did you have a hard time in the beginning not being biased when it came to posting videos of Americans getting, posterized, or, just specific content of more, because you do touch all bases. When you go through your page, it covers all three weapons. I've seen highlights from fencers from Italy, from Kazakhstan, from Mexico to the United States. It's like it just goes through all these places. So do you have a hard time just kind of being unbiased as you run this page?
Good fencing is good fencing. I don't care I don't care where it comes from. It doesn't matter if it's saber, epee, foil, men, women, chair, or able-bodied, little kids, or senior level. Like you can find it anywhere. In my opinion, you're more likely to find it in certain places than others, which is why you see certain frequencies on the page. But then also, like, I always tell people, anyone who wants to send a touch to me, I'm happy to post it if it's good. So most of the touches that you see posted these days are not things that I'm finding. They're things that other people are finding.
Submissions. And I think that's important for people even here that are listening to realize this, is that your page is largely submission based, which is really nice. It's just nice to know that almost like it's like we're kind of sharing this with you.
Yeah.
I would get a lot of pride in I've sent you touches that you posted, and it's almost like nice. Like you're the voice that we can give to all the other people,
Yeah, and I always tell people, they're like, oh, why is there not more of like this particular kind of content on the page? And the answer is always people don't send it in. And if
we had spoken about that.
Yeah, if you think that there's not enough epee on the page, find some epee clips and send them to me. And if I like them, I'll post them.
Right.
So
another important question. As a fencer, will we catch you at all on the national or regional circuit anytime soon?
Probably not. So the reason I decided to retire was because I have like my mom's family just has really bad knees genetically. And so when after the 2017 seasonal changes, like when they shortened the distance and opened it back up and made the timing longer, those things all basically meant that you had to fence even more athletically than you were before. And I'm a very athletic person, but that kind of fencing was really hurting my knees. And so at a certain point, I realized that like I would have to, it would be even more damaging for my knees. And there there was a specific time when I went to a Thanksgiving dinner and my cousins like wanted to play soccer with me or something, and I was like, I can't, I need to save my knees. And at a certain point I was like, I need to be able to do things and have some kind of life outside of fencing.
And that's eventually a choice that has to be made.
Yeah.
You know, and if it doesn't, it can be pretty drastic and life changing. So
yeah.
It's good to know that you also made this decision on your own terms, and you weren't, you know, brought to a place where the decision was made for you and it gave you any resentment. You know, from speaking with you, you don't seem to have a lot of regrets within your fencing career, which I think it puts you in the minority. I think people definitely have regrets and choices and stuff like that. So it's nice to know that you're also continuing from your competitive career to help further other people's competitive career.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the main thing that sets me apart from other people is my attitude. I'm always trying to find the silver lining in the clouds. And for this specific thing, I would say that I got into fencing much later than most people do. And sometimes I wish I had gotten into it earlier, but like, what if I'd gotten burned out? Or
right.
like, what if I had started in foil and not switched over and quit after 2 years because I just hated it? And you just have to be thankful for what you've got. And so I'm very grateful that I was given the opportunity to compete for Team USA, having started as late as I did, and make the friendships that I was able to make and travel to the places that I did. And so I have no regrets about that.
This is coming from, in this so far we've learned about Andrew, the person, the fencer, the coach, and CyrusofChaos. And I think that I speak for everyone that's either a fan of your page or will see this video and go find you, is thank you. You've provided an incredible amount of footage. I mean, even the past couple of weeks, you've been posting from World Championships in Belfast in 2009. I mean, this is footage that I never thought I would ever see.
Yeah.
So we can't thank you enough for what you're continuing to do. And myself and for other people are really excited and are in full support of where this brand goes.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to be happy to hear stuff like that. Yesterday, when I posted on Instagram a few highlights from the tournament, and I posted it and I went to take a shower and I tagged some of the people who were in the tournament, and when I got out of the shower, 4 of the 5 people that I tagged had messaged me and told me how excited that they were to watch this footage, which they'd never seen before. And throughout the day, I got messages from, again, 3 or 4 more people who were fencing that day and were like, I thought I'd never see this footage. So
yeah. So I'm excited to see the other stuff that you dig up in the future.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking this time and talking. And I hope that really people see this and also learn the fencer and the person that's behind CyrusofChaos.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Yeah. We did it.
Perfect. Yeah.